Like a lot of geeks, I'm pretty obsessive by nature. Maybe that's all geeks. Maybe that's a defining trait. I don't know. I focus on things intensely and work in sprints so I can concentrate my current obsession into productivity, or some definition of productivity. I work in the tech industry, which also works in sprints, so I've luckily managed to mostly make my obsessive personality into a superpower for myself. But similarly, I've found hobbies that hold up well to obsession, but as they say, sometimes when you look into the void looks back at you. Much to my surprise, I've learned some new lessons about life from building and painting miniatures. When I have an idea, I usually focus all my efforts into making it happen. I do that until it's done, and then I wait for the next idea to come along. It's a variation on the work hard, play hard ideology, except it's more like a play hard, relax hard. When I follow through on a fun project idea, that's fun for me. Between projects, I relax. I might spend a few days reading a book or playing a video game or just sitting out on the porch thinking. Then I have a new idea and I start the cycle again. I'm not inflexible, and there are exceptions. I mean, sometimes things have to happen in parallel, and I'm fully capable of doing that. All things being equal, though, I do prefer to work in sprints from start to finish. And then I started building and painting miniatures. When you're working on models, there's a lot of drying time involved. There's glue, there's primer, there's paint. It all has to be applied, and then it has to dry. It's a sprinter's nightmare. Luckily for wargaming, you're often not just building like one model, but you're building an entire unit. So you start with soldier 001, you glue its torso onto its legs, and then you move on to soldier 002, and so on until you reach soldier 010 or 032, or however many units and armies you're building. By that time, of course, soldier 001 is ready for some arms, so you repeat the process in sequence. However, the reality of miniature model armies is that there are a lot of them, and each model takes time, and time tends to add up. In other words, there are only 24 hours in a day, and Rome wasn't built in 24 hours, which isn't just a turn of phrase. It's a relevant example. It took me days and days to paint my Roman army. It's been a novel experience for me to look at my gaming table and to see a half-complete army and to consciously decide not to work on it because, for instance, it needs to dry, or I'm just tired of sitting hunched over my workbench. Gradually, that aspect of the wargaming hobby has become a surprisingly comfortable, ongoing activity. But I don't like ongoing activities. I work in sprints. Concurrent to my building and painting, I've also been playing war games, because that's what you do with an army once it's done. I've gotten some small teams completed, so I've been playing scenarios with them by setting them up on a battlefield on the end of my desk and then playing 1 or 2 rounds each day. For a simple game, that might be 15 minutes of play, while for a complex game, I'm still learning, it might be an hour. But it's a reliable way to make progress at a game as a sort of ongoing activity. And there's that term again, ongoing activity. I did some research on this apparent disruption in the time continuum, and apparently the concept of an ongoing activity is a known phenomenon. It's like a sprint, but slowed down and extended over a long period of time. Or, seen a different way, it's a sort of drop-in sprint. You set a thing up on a table and then you ignore it for most of the day. For an hour in the evening, though, you go over to it and you work on it, and then you go back to ignoring it. Much to my surprise, I've enjoyed my discovery of ongoing activities. I've always loved the idea of having, for instance, a chessboard set up over in a corner, like in the movies, making moves by saying,
Bishop, king, 7, checkmate, I think.
Milk and cookies kept you awake, huh?
For whatever reason, it never occurred to me to actually try it. But now I see that that can happen, and it's functionally what I have with my wargames. I don't think I'd care to try it outside of wargaming, but as a way of integrating my hobby into my normal life, it works really, really well. It's a unique experience to most games for me. Like role-playing games, you can't really do that unless you're playing play-by-post, in which case you do exactly the same thing. But I find the concept of an ongoing game quite appealing. In the end, it has increased my gaming time rather than decreasing it. Scheduling is always one of the worst things about being an adult, really. And when you don't have to schedule your game time because you don't have a spare hour, It's nice to be able to schedule some game time when you only have a spare 10 minutes to make one move of a game or to slap some paint on one miniature. It's been really good for pacing. So if you don't feel like you're getting enough gaming in your normal life, try setting up a game in a corner somewhere and just make a move every day. Or start painting miniatures and try that out a little bit at a time every day. You'd be surprised at how that consistent kind of dose of gaming or hobby activity can really have an impact in the long term. Thanks for watching.